I can't say it was a shock, but it sure as hell wasn't something I expected. You can only feel so much pain before it becomes numb, right? But what happened that evening was different. I'll never forget how calm she was. It was almost eerie. I had just finished dinner, cleaned up the plates, and sat down on the couch like I did most nights. The kids were at their friend's house, and for once, the house was quiet. Peaceful even. But Lena? Lena was different. She had this look in her eyes, something I had seen before in movies, but never thought I'd witness in real life. It was like she knew exactly what was coming, and I was just the audience to her show. She walked in, but this time, she wasn't rushing. She wasn't laughing or chatting about her day. No, this time, she moved like someone on a mission. Her steps were deliberate. She sat across from me, folded her legs under her, and placed a small, unassuming envelope on the coffee table. I couldn't help but notice how composed she looked, as if she had rehearsed this moment, and I was the only one who hadn't prepared. "I think it's time," she said, her voice soft but resolute. I didn't ask time for what. I already knew. My stomach did a slow, sinking turn, but I didn't say anything. I just stared at the envelope in front of me, wondering if this was really happening. "You deserve to know the truth," she added, her gaze not meeting mine, but her hands steady as they sat on her lap. I swallowed hard. "Is this it, Lena?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, barely audible to my own ears. "Are you done?" She nodded slowly, as if giving me some kind of permission to take this seriously. Then, she opened the envelope. The thing is, when you get to this point in a relationship, when you know it's finally breaking, you think you're ready. But you're never ready. I never imagined it would come down to a piece of paper. I didn't think it would be this simple. But there it was. I leaned forward and read the first line. 15 reasons why you should let me go. I wasn't shocked, but I was hurt. And then came the worst part. She didn't even look like she cared. Reason 1. You're never really present anymore. I read it, and my eyes glazed over the rest of the list. Each reason hitting me harder than the last, but I kept reading. She didn't seem like the woman I had been living with, the woman I thought was my partner. Reason 2. You don't even know how to love me anymore. It was like she was speaking in riddles. Or worse, she was speaking the truth. But I didn't recognize it. And for a moment, I wanted to scream. I wanted to rage at the injustice of it all. How could she say this? How could she leave me with no warning? But then I read the third line, and that's when everything hit me full force. Reason 3. I don't feel seen by you anymore. You've changed. I stared at those words for what felt like forever. I've changed. The irony hit me then. She was leaving me because I had changed. But I wasn't sure who I was anymore either. The man I had been a year ago, hell, even 6 months ago, wasn't the man sitting here now. It wasn't because I didn't try. I tried harder than ever, harder than anyone could imagine. But in the process, I lost myself. And somewhere along the way, I lost her too. I put the paper down and met her eyes. She wasn't looking at me with hatred or even disdain. It was more like she had accepted the inevitable. She was looking at me with a kind of resignation I'd never seen before. The kind of look you give someone when you've already made up your mind, and you're just waiting for them to catch up. "Lena," I whispered, feeling the lump in my throat grow. "You really want this?" She nodded, her face blank, her hands still resting calmly on her lap. Then, she took a deep breath and said something that shook me to my core. "I'm done trying. It's not just you. It's me too. I need to be free of this, of us. I need to live again." It wasn't the words themselves that hurt. It was the finality of them. There was no pleading, no attempt to soften the blow. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't going to give me another chance. And in that moment, it became painfully clear. This wasn't a relationship on the rocks. This was the end. I sat there, staring at the paper in front of me. I could feel the weight of it pressing down on me. The weight of everything she had just said, everything she had been carrying inside her for who knows how long. And then, without thinking, I did the one thing I promised myself I would never do. I walked away. I stood up and walked out of the room, leaving her sitting there with that stupid list of reasons. I don't know why I did it. Maybe I thought walking away would give me some semblance of control. Maybe I thought it would make her realize she couldn't just walk away like that. But it didn't work. She didn't come after me. She didn't call my name. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't just losing her. I was losing myself too. That night, I didn't sleep. It's funny how the silence can be more deafening than any argument. I kept replaying the moment in my mind. Lena sitting across from me, telling me it was over, handing me that list, as if everything could be reduced to 15 bullet points. The next morning, I woke up to an empty house. The kids were still at their friend's house, and Lena? She wasn't there. She hadn't even bothered to leave a note. It was as if she had just disappeared. Or maybe I had just been too blind to see how much she had already checked out of this marriage long before she handed me the paper. I made coffee like I always did, but it felt different. I didn't have anyone to make it for. I wasn't going to sit across from Lena and chat about our day. I wasn't going to hear her complain about the workday or laugh at some stupid thing I said. It felt like everything had shifted overnight, and I was still standing in the same place, unable to grasp what had just happened. I called her. No answer. I texted her. No reply. The silence grew louder. It was as if the world around me was echoing with her absence. I couldn't help but wonder, had I become invisible to her? Was I so insignificant that she could just walk away without a second thought? By the afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove to her favorite cafe, hoping to find her there. Maybe she needed some space. Maybe she was just processing things, and she hadn't really meant what she said. When I walked in, I scanned the room. But she wasn't there. Instead, I saw something else, a stranger, sitting alone at a corner table, looking oddly familiar. As I stepped closer, my heart dropped. It was a man. A younger man, and I realized with a sickening feeling in my stomach that he was looking at me with the same expression that I had seen on my wife's face the night before. Calm, knowing, and entirely too comfortable. He was with Lena. It hit me like a ton of bricks. They were together, and I hadn't even seen it coming. I turned around and walked out before he could notice me. The air felt thick, like it was pushing me down, forcing me to confront something I had been ignoring for months. Something I should have noticed, but had chosen not to. I drove back home in a daze. The world outside the car window blurred, but the thoughts inside my head grew clearer. Lena had been slipping away for so long. I just hadn't been paying attention. The man in the cafe, his familiarity with Lena, it all pointed to something I wasn't ready to admit. When I got home, the silence was suffocating. The house felt so empty without her. And that's when I realized I had been nothing more than an afterthought to her. A placeholder. Someone to take care of the bills, to keep the house running, while she found her happiness elsewhere. I don't know how long I stood there, just staring at the door, but when I finally picked up my phone, I did something I never thought I would. I messaged her, my fingers trembling as I typed. "Where are you?" It felt like an absurd question. I already knew the answer, but I needed to hear it. I needed to hear her tell me that everything had changed, that this wasn't a misunderstanding, that she was really going through with it. I waited. A minute, then 2, then 5. No response. I stared at the screen, at the small dots that indicated she was typing something, but it never came. She had nothing to say to me. I had no idea where she was, but the truth was clear. She didn't want me to know. Finally, the phone buzzed with a new notification. It wasn't from her. It was from someone else. From a number I didn't recognize. "You need to talk. I know what's going on." My heart skipped. I didn't know who this was, but the message felt like a warning. Someone knew. Someone had seen what had happened. And for a moment, I thought about ignoring it. I almost convinced myself it was just a prank, something that would lead nowhere. But I didn't. I replied, "Who is this?" A few seconds later, the message appeared. "We can meet. I know what she's doing, and you deserve to know the truth." My hands shook as I stared at the screen. I wasn't sure if I should go meet this person, but something in me told me I had no choice. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. I couldn't keep ignoring the truth anymore. I grabbed my keys, my phone, and left the house. The only question that lingered in my mind was this. What if everything I had been afraid to face was far worse than I could have ever imagined? I drove across town, the streets blurring beneath the headlights, but my mind was sharper than ever. Every bump in the road, every stoplight, felt like an eternity as I wrestled with what had happened that day. The man in the cafe, the strange message. Lena, my wife, the woman I thought I knew inside and out, was hiding something, and I had to find out what. I arrived at the meeting point, an old, dimly lit bar tucked between 2 rundown buildings. I had passed it 100 times, never thinking to step inside. But tonight, I wasn't there to drink. I was there to get answers. The place smelled of stale beer and cigarettes, and I had to push through the heavy wooden door to get inside. The noise hit me first. Laughter, clinking glasses, the hum of a jukebox in the corner. But it wasn't what I had expected. It wasn't crowded. In fact, the place was almost empty. I spotted him immediately. He was sitting at a corner booth, a man in his late 20s, sharp features, wearing a black leather jacket, and his hands clasped together on the table as if he had been waiting for hours. When he saw me, his eyes shifted, not with fear, but with the kind of calm confidence that only comes when someone has all the answers you've been searching for. I walked over, my steps uncertain, but there was no turning back now. I slid into the seat across from him, trying to keep my cool, but I couldn't hide the fury building inside me. Who was this guy? And why the hell did he know so much about Lena? You must be Derek, he said, his voice low, but surprisingly kind. It was like he knew who I was before I even opened my mouth. His words sent a chill down my spine. I am, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. And you are? The man smiled, but there was no humor in it. Let's just say I know Lena better than you think. And I've seen how it all went down. I sat there, stunned, wondering if I had stepped into some kind of trap. But this wasn't the time to question his motives. This was the time to find out what was going on. Tell me everything, I said, my words coming out more forceful than I intended. What's going on between you and my wife? He leaned back in the booth, his eyes narrowing slightly, as if weighing how much to say. It's not what you think, Derek. But you're right to be worried. It started a while ago, long before the list, long before she walked out on you. I felt a knot form in my stomach. My mind raced, and for a second, I couldn't breathe. Long before the list? What the hell did he mean? What had I missed? Lena came to me, Derek. She came to me when she couldn't find what she was looking for in you. She needed someone. She needed someone who actually saw her. She wasn't just looking for another man. She was looking for an escape. I could feel the blood rushing to my face. I wanted to scream, to throw something across the room, but I held it in. It wasn't his fault. Who are you? I demanded again, though this time, my voice trembled more than I wanted it to. Why should I trust you? The man looked down at the table, his fingers tapping rhythmically, like he was calculating something in his head. Finally, he sighed and looked me dead in the eyes. Because I care about her. But not the way you think. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to tell you what you need to know. Then tell me. I pressed, nearly on the edge of my seat. He paused, as if gathering his thoughts. When he spoke again, his words cut through the thick air between us. She's been seeing someone else for months, Derek. And it's not just about the physical thing, it's deeper than that. She was looking for something, someone, who could fill a gap that you couldn't even see was there. I felt the floor shift beneath me. I wanted to punch something, anything. But I needed to hear it all. I needed to know the truth, no matter how ugly it was. Who is he? I asked, the words choking me as I spoke them. The man gave me a small, almost pitying smile. You're never going to guess it. Not in a million years. He paused, letting the suspense build. It's your best friend, Alex. The room seemed to spin. I couldn't comprehend it at first. Alex? My best friend? The one person I trusted more than anyone? How could that be possible? My mind raced through the years of friendship, the countless hours spent together, the barbecues, the weekends we spent camping, the late-night talks about life. How could I have been so blind? Alex, I repeated, still trying to wrap my head around it. Are you sure? I'm sure, he said quietly. I watched them together, Derek. And I saw how it all started. It wasn't just a fling. It was more. She found someone who made her feel seen. And she wasn't getting that from you. The words hit me like a slap in the face. I was reeling. My best friend. My wife. Together. For how long? Was it all a lie? Had she been pretending to love me while everything I thought was real was crumbling behind my back? And then, just as quickly, the rage surged within me. I wanted to confront Alex. I wanted to scream at him, to tear into him for what he had done. But what good would it do? The damage had already been done. Why are you telling me this? I asked through gritted teeth, my hands shaking. The man shrugged slightly. Because you deserve to know. And maybe, just maybe, you deserve a shot at walking away with your dignity before it all blows up in your face. He got up to leave, and I sat there, paralyzed by the weight of what he had just told me. It felt like the world had crumbled beneath my feet, and yet, I was the last to know. As I sat in that empty booth, the weight of his words still sinking in, I couldn't help but wonder how everything had gone so wrong. How did I miss the signs? Was I so blinded by love that I couldn't see what was happening right in front of me? I spent the rest of the night driving around aimlessly, my hands gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The man, Mark, had left me with more questions than answers. Alex, my best friend, the one person I trusted most in this world, had crossed a line I couldn't even comprehend. My mind was a storm, and no matter how much I tried to make sense of it, there was no clarity. Just the unrelenting feeling of betrayal. I thought I could handle it. After all, I was used to disappointment. But this felt like a punch to the gut, like the entire foundation of my life had been ripped out from under me. I had never seen it coming. I thought Lena and I were fine. We had our issues, sure. We'd been through rough patches, but we always worked through them. Or at least, I thought we did. But now, I knew the truth. She had been lying. She had been lying to me for months. And not just about Alex. It wasn't just that simple. I had to face it. Lena had checked out of our marriage long before she handed me that list, long before I even knew there was a problem. I got home at sunrise, exhausted, my mind still reeling. The house was quiet, too quiet. The kids weren't home yet, and Lena? She still wasn't back. I stood there in the doorway for a moment, taking it all in. I wanted to break something. I wanted to scream. But instead, I did the one thing I never thought I would. I waited. I waited for her to come back. I waited for her to walk in that door and face me. Because deep down, I knew I deserved answers. No more games. No more lies. When Lena finally came home, it was late afternoon. She walked in like nothing had changed, a coffee cup in her hand, a tired look on her face. But when she saw me standing there, waiting, her expression shifted. I didn't need to say anything. Her eyes told me everything. She knew. She knew that I knew. "Derek," she said quietly, setting her coffee down on the counter. Her voice was calm, too calm. "We need to talk." "I think we do," I replied, my voice sharper than I intended. I wasn't going to hold back anymore. She sighed, running a hand through her hair, a habit she always did when she was nervous. "I know you're upset, but this isn't easy for me either." Upset? I couldn't help but laugh, though it was bitter and hollow. "You think I'm upset?" I stepped forward, my heart racing. "You've been having an affair with Alex, Lena. For months. And I had no idea. I was blind, wasn't I?" Her face paled, but she didn't look guilty. She looked defeated, as if she had already prepared for this moment and had already made peace with what was happening. "Derek, it's not that simple," she said softly, taking a step back. "I never wanted to hurt you, but I had to. I had to do something. I felt so alone." "Alone?" I repeated, my voice rising now, the anger surging through me. "You were never alone. You had me. But I wasn't enough, was I? I wasn't enough to keep you happy. You had to go to him, my best friend, the one person I trusted more than anything. And you didn't even have the decency to tell me. You just checked out." I could see her flinch at my words, but she didn't argue. She didn't try to defend herself. She just stood there, looking at me like she couldn't recognize me anymore. "I thought I was doing the right thing," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. "But I can't keep living a lie, Derek. I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel seen by you. I tried to make it work, I really did. But you were so focused on your job, on everything but me. And Alex made me feel alive again. He made me feel wanted." Every word she said felt like another dagger in my chest. But I knew I couldn't just stand there and let her explain away her actions. "Alive? You think I didn't care about you?" I shook my head in disbelief. "You think I didn't try to make this work? I worked every damn day. I paid the bills. I kept the house together. All while you were slipping away from me. And you didn't say a word. Not one word until it was too late. Until you were already out the door." She stepped forward, her eyes welling up with tears. "I never wanted to hurt you, Derek. But I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't keep living like this, feeling like I was invisible. I wanted to feel loved, wanted, alive, like I wasn't just someone's wife or someone's mother. I wanted to be me again." "Me again," I echoed, the words tasting sour. "What about us, Lena? What about the years we spent building this life? All the memories we made? What about the love we shared? Was it all just a lie? Did it all mean nothing to you?" She didn't answer at first. She just stood there, her hands trembling at her sides. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely audible. "I don't know what to say anymore. I don't know how to fix this." I felt my heart break in that moment, not just for me, but for us. Because in that silence, I realized the truth. There was no fixing this. There was no going back. Everything we had built was gone. And no amount of apologies, no amount of tears, was going to change that. I turned away, my back to her, as I fought to control the emotions threatening to break free. "I don't think I can forgive you for this, Lena," I said, my voice shaking. "I don't think I can look at you the same way again." She didn't reply. Instead, I heard her footsteps retreating, disappearing into the other room. But I didn't chase her. I didn't call after her. Because I knew that this was the moment everything changed. And I wasn't sure I could ever go back to the man I used to be. I didn't sleep that night. The kind of sleep where your mind won't stop racing, turning over every word she said, replaying it over and over again in your head. Lena had finally left the room, and for hours I just sat there, staring at the wall, feeling numb. My stomach was a mess of knots, my chest tight with the weight of what had happened. I tried to make sense of it all, but the more I thought, the less I understood. I had been a fool, a blind fool. The signs had been there for months. Hell, maybe even years, but I was too focused on everything else to notice. Too focused on my job, my responsibilities. I kept telling myself that everything was fine, that we were just going through a rough patch. But it wasn't a rough patch. It was the end of something that had been dying for a long time, and I didn't even see it coming. The next morning, I woke up to silence. It was strange. The kids were still at their friend's house, so the house was eerily quiet, but that wasn't what made it feel wrong. What made it feel wrong was the absence of Lena, the emptiness she had left behind in every corner of this place. She wasn't here anymore, not in any real way. I found a note on the kitchen counter when I stumbled in to make coffee. It was in Lena's handwriting, and my heart skipped a beat as I picked it up. It was brief, too brief. "I'm staying at a friend's house for a few days. I need space to think. We need space to figure things out. We'll talk when I get back. L." I stood there, staring at the note, my mind spinning. Space. Was this some kind of joke? She had already made it clear that she wanted to leave. What did space even mean in this context? Was she giving me time to process? Was she trying to figure out if she wanted to keep lying to me, or if she'd rather just walk away for good? The uncertainty gnawed at me. I thought about calling her, but I knew better. She needed space, but I needed answers. I needed closure. I took the day to collect myself, to try and make sense of the pieces that had been scattered over the last 24 hours. I couldn't do this alone anymore. Not after everything that had been thrown at me. And I wasn't going to let this go on any longer. I called Alex. It was stupid. I knew it was stupid, but I had to hear it from him. I had to hear him admit it. That he had betrayed me, not just as my best friend, but as someone I had trusted implicitly. He answered on the third ring, his voice casual, like nothing was wrong. Like nothing had changed. "Derek? What's up, man?" His voice sounded too familiar, too normal. It made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. "We need to talk," I said, my voice low, strained. In person, there was a pause. Just a brief one, but it was enough. Enough to tell me that he knew exactly what was coming. "Yeah, sure. When?" "Now," I replied. "I'll be there in 10 minutes. I didn't give him a chance to respond. I hung up, grabbed my keys, and walked out the door without another word. As I drove to his place, my mind was racing again. What would I say to him? What could I say? What was left to say? When I pulled up to his apartment, I didn't even park properly. I just left the car running and went straight up to his door. I knocked once, twice, then a third time, pounding on the door like it owed me something. And then, there he was. Alex, standing there, looking at me like he hadn't done anything wrong. "Derek, man, calm down. What's going on?" He stepped aside, but I didn't move. "You know exactly what's going on," I said, my voice trembling now with barely contained anger. "You know why I'm here. You're a liar, Alex. A damn liar." His eyes flickered for a split second, but he quickly masked it with a half-smile. "Whoa, hold on. What are you talking about?" I couldn't believe the audacity. This was my best friend, the guy I had shared everything with, and now he was playing dumb. "Don't act like you don't know. I know about you and Lena. I know everything." For a second, I thought I saw guilt flash across his face, but it was gone before I could fully process it. "Look, Derek," he said, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know what you've heard, but it's not what you think. Lena and we've been talking, but it's not like you're imagining." I laughed, but it wasn't a real laugh. It was bitter, filled with disbelief. "Not what I'm imagining. You've been seeing my wife behind my back, Alex. You've been lying to me, to both of us. You've been pretending everything's fine while you're with her, in secret, for months. He looked down at the ground, unable to meet my eyes. Derek, I never wanted this to happen. But it did. And I'm sorry, man. I never wanted to hurt you. But I couldn't keep pretending either. I stepped forward, my chest tight with rage. Then why did you? Why did you hurt me like this? What the hell did I ever do to deserve this? He sighed, shoulders sagging as if the weight of his own guilt was finally catching up with him. I don't know, but I'm sorry. I really am. I shook my head. Sorry doesn't fix this, Alex. You're not sorry. You're sorry you got caught. That's all. And just like that, the last thread of our friendship snapped. I turned and walked out without looking back. There was nothing left to say, nothing left to fix. I had been living in a lie, and now, all of it had come crashing down around me. I drove back home, numb, my heart heavy with the weight of what I had learned. When I walked through the door, I saw Lena's note again, and for the first time, I realized what I had to do. I couldn't keep pretending anymore. I couldn't keep living in this world of uncertainty. It was time for me to make a decision. It was time for me to decide if I was going to stay and fight for something that was already dead, or if I was going to walk away. But no matter what I chose, I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep living in the shadow of their betrayal. The evening I returned home from Alex's apartment, the air in the house felt suffocating. I was still reeling from the conversation, my mind spinning with everything I had just learned. Alex had admitted to everything. He didn't try to make excuses. He didn't beg for forgiveness. He just stood there, barely making eye contact, and accepted it. And that was what stung the most, his lack of remorse. It was as if everything we'd shared, all those years of friendship, meant nothing to him. Maybe it didn't. I pushed open the door to our bedroom, the door I had walked through 1,000 times without thinking twice. But tonight it felt different. It felt like I was entering a stranger's house. My eyes immediately went to the spot on the dresser where Lena kept her things. Her perfume, her makeup, her hairbrush. All the little things that made this room feel like our space, our shared life, now shattered. I walked over and picked up a small picture frame that had been sitting there for years. It was from our honeymoon, a candid shot of us laughing on the beach. That was before everything started to change. That was when we were happy, or at least, when I thought we were. I put the frame back down gently, as if handling a fragile object. My fingers lingered on the edge of it, and for a second, I wished I could go back. I wished I could go back to the time when I didn't know what I knew now. I wished I could erase the image of Alex and Lena together, the betrayal that had been building for months, maybe even longer. I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't ready to face the fact that my entire life was a lie. But there was no going back. I had to face it. I had to confront Lena. When she came home that night, I was already sitting at the kitchen table, the room dark except for the dim light from the living room. It wasn't like our usual evenings when she'd come home and tell me about her day. This time, there was an unease between us, a space that had widened the second I found out about her affair. She stepped in through the door and stopped short when she saw me. Her eyes flickered with uncertainty, like she was trying to read me, trying to figure out where I stood. For a second, she looked at me like she wanted to say something, anything, but instead, she just stood there, fidgeting with the strap of her bag. "Derek," she said, her voice soft, but there was a tremor in it, the kind you get when you know you've already lost. "I didn't expect you to be home. I was going to." "Don't," I interrupted her, my voice hoarse. I didn't want to hear any more excuses, any more justifications. "I know everything, Lena." She froze, her face paling. For a moment, I thought she might say something, but she just stared at me, almost in disbelief. "You know everything?" she whispered. "Yeah," I said, my voice steady, though it felt like a part of me was dying with every word. "I know about you and Alex. I know how long it's been going on. I know it wasn't just a mistake or a fling. I know you've been lying to me. And I know, deep down, you don't even care about what it's doing to me." Lena's lips parted, but no words came out. She looked at me like she couldn't decide if she wanted to cry, yell, or run away. In that moment, I saw the cracks in her. I saw that she wasn't the woman I had married. She wasn't even the woman I thought I knew. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said, finally finding her voice. "I never wanted it to end like this. But I couldn't keep pretending, Derek. I couldn't keep living in this empty space, feeling invisible, ignored. Alex, he made me feel seen. He made me feel important. It was like a slap to my face. She was still defending her actions. She was still justifying the betrayal. I had to control myself, to stop from yelling, from breaking everything in sight. I worked every damn day, Lena, I said, my voice cracking. I worked myself to the bone for this family. And I was there for you, in every way I knew how. I might not have been perfect, but I didn't deserve this. I didn't deserve to be treated like I wasn't good enough, like I wasn't worth your love. Her eyes filled with tears, and she stepped forward, her hand trembling as she reached out. Derek, please. I never wanted to hurt you. You have to understand. I needed something more, something I wasn't getting from you. I thought I could fix it. I thought I could make it better, but I couldn't. I was so unhappy, and when I met Alex. Stop, I cut her off. I couldn't listen to this anymore. Stop making excuses. You made a choice, Lena. You made a choice to betray me. And I can't forgive that. The silence between us stretched on, thick and suffocating. I could feel the weight of her presence, but I couldn't look at her. Not anymore. The woman standing in front of me wasn't the person I had spent the last few years loving. She was someone else. Someone who had given up. Someone who had decided to tear apart everything we had for a fleeting moment of happiness with someone else. Derek, she said quietly, her voice barely a whisper. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I don't know if we can fix this. I don't know if I want to. And just like that, the final nail was hammered into the coffin of our marriage. I sat there in stunned silence, my heart breaking in a way I never thought possible. It wasn't just the affair. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the realization that the woman I had loved for years, the woman I had stood by through thick and thin, had stopped loving me a long time ago. I couldn't fix this. Not anymore. With one last look at her, I stood up, my legs weak beneath me, and walked toward the door. You know what, Lena? I said, turning around to face her one last time. I think you're right. Maybe it's time we both move on. She didn't say anything. She just stood there, silent, as I walked out. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was truly free. The air felt different when I stepped outside that night. It wasn't the typical crisp coolness that came with the evening breeze, but something else, a suffocating heaviness, like the weight of 1,000 unspoken words pressing down on me. I had just walked out on my wife, the woman I had once vowed to love, honor, and cherish. It should have been freeing, I suppose. But there was no freedom in what I had just done. I could still hear her voice in my head, the desperation in it, the apology wrapped in excuses. I didn't want to hurt you, Derek, she'd said. I could still see the tears in her eyes as she begged me to understand, to somehow forgive her betrayal. And for a brief moment, I almost felt guilty. But guilt was a luxury I couldn't afford anymore. Not after everything she had done. As I drove aimlessly through the empty streets, the quiet of the night pressing in on me, my mind raced. I thought about what I had just done, what I had just said to Lena. Was I really done with her? Did I want to end everything? The house, the life, the years we'd spent together. It all seemed like a dream I couldn't wake up from. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized it wasn't a dream. It was a nightmare. She wasn't the same person anymore. She hadn't been for a long time. I had been so wrapped up in the day-to-day, trying to hold things together, that I didn't even notice how much she had slipped away from me. And maybe that was the worst part, that I hadn't even realized it was happening. I drove past a park, a place Lena and I used to visit when we were younger, before life got complicated. Before kids, before bills, before everything else that had weighed us down. The swings were still there, rusty and abandoned, swaying gently in the wind, just like the memories that had once felt so real. I pulled into the parking lot, turning off the engine, and sat there for a moment, looking out at the empty swings. The memories hit me like a wave. I remembered the first time we came here. We were in our 20s, laughing as we raced to see who could swing higher. It felt like nothing could touch us, like the world was ours to conquer. And now? Now she was with Alex. The anger I had been holding back started to boil over. How had I been so blind? How had I not seen the signs? There had been so many little things. The way she had started pulling away, the way she would go silent during conversations, the way she'd stop looking me in the eye when we were together. I had made excuses for it all. But now, sitting in that car, I realized something. I had been in denial. I had ignored the truth because I was too afraid of facing it. The realization stung. I wasn't just angry at her. I was angry at myself for not seeing it sooner, for not fighting harder to fix what was broken. But it was too late now. I couldn't change the past. All I could do was figure out what came next. I spent the next few hours driving. I didn't have a destination. I didn't know where I was going or what I was looking for. All I knew was that I needed to get away. From her. From the house. From the life I had built and lost. I didn't want to go back to her. Not yet. Not when I felt like I had been the fool for so long. When I finally stopped, I found myself parked outside my friend Mark's apartment. He was someone I hadn't seen in years, an old friend from college. He was a guy who always had a level head, someone who didn't sugarcoat things. I needed someone who wouldn't coddle me, someone who would tell me the truth, no matter how much it hurt. I knocked on his door, pacing back and forth as I waited. When Mark opened it, his face was filled with surprise, but also something else, concern. "Derek? What the hell are you doing here?" he asked, his voice low, but not unkind. "I need to talk," I said, my voice breaking as I stepped inside. "I need to get this off my chest." Mark didn't ask questions. He just let me sit down and listened as I poured out everything. The affair, the betrayal, the heartbreak. I didn't hold anything back. It all came out in a flood of raw emotion. When I finished, Mark just sat there for a long time, staring at me. Finally, he spoke. "You're going to have to make a decision, Derek. You can't keep living in the past, holding on to what's gone. You need to figure out if you're going to stay in this toxic mess, or if you're going to walk away and rebuild your life." I looked at him, my mind still clouded with confusion. I didn't want to hear that. I didn't want to think about rebuilding. I wasn't ready for that. "I don't know if I can do that," I said, my voice thick with emotion. She was everything to me. I gave her everything. And now? Now I'm just supposed to let it go? Mark shook his head. "No one's telling you to forget what happened. But you have to understand. You can't change her, and you can't change what happened. The only thing you can control is how you move forward. And you have to decide whether you're going to let her actions define the rest of your life, or if you're going to find a way to heal." I sat there for a long time, listening to his words. Part of me wanted to scream, to lash out at him for being so cold. But another part of me knew he was right. I couldn't keep holding on to this pain. I couldn't let her betrayal control my life any longer. It was time for me to make a choice. A decision that would shape my future. But even as I sat there, trying to figure out what that choice would be, I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep living in the shadow of her betrayal. I woke up the next morning with a clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. The fog that had clouded my mind for so long seemed to lift in an instant, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I could breathe. Mark's words from the night before echoed in my mind. "You can't change what happened. The only thing you can control is how you move forward." It hit me harder than I expected, but it was the wake-up call I needed. The betrayal, the lies, everything Lena had done to me, it didn't define me. I was still me. And no matter how much I hurt, I still had the power to decide what came next. I grabbed my phone, staring at it for a moment. I had been avoiding it for days, afraid of the inevitable conversations that awaited me. But today I was ready. Today, I was going to take back control of my life. I dialed the number. It rang once, twice, and then she picked up. I didn't know what I was going to say, but when she spoke, I knew. "Derek." Lena's voice was hesitant, unsure. "I didn't expect you to call." "Lena," I said, my voice steady but calm. "We need to talk." She didn't say anything right away. She just listened, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I had her attention. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I was clear. "I've thought about everything. About you. About me. About us. And I've realized something. I can't keep living in the past. I can't keep letting what happened define me, define my future." There was silence on the other end of the line, and I could almost feel her holding her breath, waiting for me to continue. "I'm not saying this to hurt you," I went on, "but I think it's time for both of us to move on. For me to move on. You've made your choice, and now it's my turn to make mine." I paused, letting the weight of my words settle in. "I'm choosing to heal. I'm choosing to live my life, not in the shadow of your betrayal, but in the light of everything I can still become." I heard her breathing on the other end, her voice barely above a whisper. "Derek, But I didn't need her to explain. I didn't need her apology. The decision had been made. "I'm not going to beg for a second chance, Lena," I said, the finality in my voice surprising even me. "I've already given you enough of me. Now it's time I start giving that to myself. I hope you find the happiness you're looking for, but I'm done trying to fix something that's already broken." And then I hung up. The weight that had been pressing on my chest for months, maybe even years, lifted. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't going to let this define me anymore. I had a life to live. That afternoon, I packed a bag, not for some grand escape, but for something more important. For the future I was finally ready to build. I booked a flight to visit an old friend, someone I hadn't seen in years. It wasn't a vacation. It was the beginning of something new. I was finally doing something for myself, taking that first step toward a future where I didn't have to look over my shoulder anymore. The next few weeks weren't easy. There were days when the hurt resurfaced, days when I still missed the life I thought I had. But there were also days when I woke up feeling free, days when I realized that the world was still full of possibilities. And each day, I took one step further away from the pain. As time passed, I started to rediscover things about myself that I had long forgotten. I took up hobbies I had once enjoyed. I started working out again, not to change my appearance, but to feel strong in my own body. I began to laugh more, to find joy in the small moments of life. And slowly, I realized that I didn't need anyone to complete me. I was enough on my own. Months later, I met someone new. Her name was Sarah. She wasn't a replacement for Lena. She didn't fill any gaps in my life. No, she was just someone who made me feel seen, someone who valued me for who I was. We started off slow, taking our time to build something real. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The road to healing wasn't a straight line. It wasn't easy, and there were still moments when I thought about Lena and Alex, when I questioned everything. But I knew one thing for sure. I was no longer living in the past. I was moving forward, and I was finally at peace with the man I had become. To be continued. Or maybe, for the first time, the story is finally over. But it's not the end for me.